Good afternoon, Sophia Banks. Welcome on VH Berries.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
I am extremely grateful. How are you doing today?
I'm doing so good. I'm really happy. It's Friday, so that's always good. And the strike is over. Well, the WGA strike is over, so that's great.
Your day and your week is running very well, and the word run has one syllable. It signals both escape and pursuit, and in its complexity and simplicity, a world of stories unfolds, in particular between Emily, Wrecker, and Atta.
Oh, yes. I'm glad you got to see it.
Absolutely, Sophia Banks. I would love to discuss about this short film called Unregistered. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so that was, I think, the second or third narrative. I did that so to sort of show, like, to get people excited about a feature. And we are developing a feature. Actually, a script is almost done now. So I'm really excited about that. It was sort of inspired by, it's so funny because it was before COVID, where I feel like it feels like it has a lot of themes. It was inspired by the China one child policy. It was inspired by a little bit of Anne Frank, like what would it be like to live your kind of teenage years in a room, and then a little bit of Hunger Games. So sort of all mixed together with a love triangle. And we had an incredible cast and crew, and we shot it, and it was really fun. And it's available. You can watch it on Dust. And then, we're really excited to get the movie out there.
It is. The short film is currently available on Dust, and as you just mentioned, Sophia Banks, you mixed different influences from Anne Frank to the one child policy. Can you tell us about the storyline, because you are covering very important subjects?
Yeah, so the storyline is about a future USA that because of climate change, you can only have one child for a minute, right? And basically, this family that has a lot of power, I don't want to give it away, but gets pregnant with twins. So it's sort of figuring out what they're going to do. And therefore they have to keep one child inside and one child outside, right? And then what is it like if you're the child, which is where sort of the Anne Frank thing comes in, of like, what's it like to grow up and never go outside, and maybe you're really smart, and maybe you're very innocent. And it's funny, I would think of like, we're probably all very sweet and innocent, and then you go to daycare, and then someone's mean, and then someone else is mean. And so what would it be like to be 22 and have never had any interactions that like inhibit you? And what would that person be like? And maybe they would just be so outgoing and so bold that life would just look like beautiful to them, So that's sort of the inspiration for Adder. And then what's the reverse like if you're living outside and then you have a sibling that living inside and knowing like that they're not getting to have what you have, and what's the guilt of like that like? And then I always found this really interesting. If you look at children in war, or in like times of like Nazi Germany, or these sort of times, they're still happy and playing games, So it's interesting about like, what is the view through the teenage gaze of when other things are going on at the end of the day? And you see that reflected in Anne Frank. You know, she's still talking about the boy and that sort of stuff. So I thought those were really interesting things and themes to explore, because it's through that lens of innocence and the way we see the world.
Absolutely, Sophia Banks, it is a very brilliant piece of art, and there is one character called Atta who is always insisting on recording every moment with her contact eye lenses camera. Can you tell us about this very special element that allows her to share her life experiences with her twin sister?
Yeah, so I think that is really interesting because, so it's an idea, which I'm sure we'll have, by the way. So it was an idea that you could put a contact lens in and record everything. And what I wanted to explore with that, which is, as we know, we live in a world where everyone wants to share anything. And there's a great line where Rekha says to her, why are you always recording everything, you know? And then he's like, if you're always recording it, are you ever really in the moment, right? And he sort of says that. And I think that is such a beautiful and interesting theme because I often, you know, I was just traveling, I was in Europe, and I go to these places and everyone's like recording, but I always make sure, like, okay, if I'm taking a photo, am I just taking the photo or am I like looking at the beauty myself and experiencing it for myself? And so I just thought that was like a great fun thing to explore because there are so many people that are recording their life for others but not living it.
Not living it, Sophia Banks, and this character named Atta is thinking outside the box because she is not accepting the state of things, especially when and after witnessing a second kid captured and hearing the drone saying immediate removal to labor camp.
Yeah, so I had grandparents and relatives that were in Poland when the Nazis came in. And so there's a little bit of like, I always wondered, what's it like to watch, what was it like to watch the Jews like, who's doing things and who isn't, And when the Jewish people are taken to the camps, are you just standing on the streets and letting it happen? So I like Ada, and I wanted someone who was affected by it, you know what I mean? Because, again, in society, there's people who stand around and let things happen, and then there's people who do things about it. And I think it's easy to become numb to things that aren't right, but we have to continue to try and stand up for what's right.
Standing up for what is right, Sophia Banks, so that the population, especially as depicted in that short film, is identified as barcodes. And I find it also very interesting, that idea of confronting the idea of someone versus who they really are, the digital connection versus the human connection, and also love versus safety.
Totally. And I think it's really important, and it's really a metaphor for just, you know what I mean? Like, no matter, you can't like say one person is less than another. Doesn't matter what religion, doesn't matter what race, what they look like. Like that's just, and any time it happens, it shouldn't, you know? So I think that is a really important thing for us to continue to look at in society, because I think sometimes we think we're not discriminating, but we are in some ways, whether it's whatever political party you belong to. You know what I mean? So I think it's really important in this time of division to keep looking for the things we have in common.
Furthermore, Sophia Banks, there is this character named Emily who is unregistered, but there is a movie that is currently unregistered. I am talking about a spy movie. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Oh, the new movie I have coming up?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the new movie I have coming up is called The Dane Conspiracy. And it is a sort of a kind of 3 Days to the Condor meets Jason Bourne. So it's set in San Francisco, Texas, and DC, and it's about a young woman who wants to be part of the CIA but is working in a tech company and basically stumbles across something and flags it, and then is basically set up and has to go on the run. And so it's very cool. It has a lot of awesome elements. We're casting right now. We have some great cast, which hopefully I can announce soon. We have an incredible team, and we're hoping to start in January.
You are expected to start the shooting of that spy movie, Sophia Banks, in the month January of next year.
Yes.
And this is going to take place in Australia, which is a country that you are particularly enjoying a lot. Can you tell us about, for example, the location and the nature that you are going to incorporate in that spy movie?
Yeah, I mean, so I was raised in Australia, so I am English and Australian, but I've now been living in America a long time. The movie is set in America, but because I'm Australian, and Australia has really good tax incentives, it's a good place to go shoot. So there's a lot of movies going to shoot down there. They have really good studios. They have good crews. So because it's my original home country, I enjoy going down there.
Absolutely, Sophia Banks, and all of your stories that you are telling through images and sound are inspired by your imagination, but also your past experiences. What were and what is and where is this story coming from? Can you tell us about the influences of that spy movie?
Yes. So the influences, the story was written by myself, my producer, Bill Mechanic, who produced Hacksaw Ridge and Coraline, and the writer who wrote it with us. So it was heavily influenced by 70s films. So the films like The Conversation, 3 Days to the Condor, the Pakula films, which are All the President's Men, Clute, Parallax View, and then actually a lot of Hitchcock. So a lot of North by Northwest, 39 Steps. And so I'm a big fan of Hitchcock. And so it's sort of a culmination of those things.
It is, Sophia Banks, a combination of all of those things. And if I understood correctly, very recently and last week, you spent an entire week learning and preparing yourself for that spy movie. For instance, by spending a numerous numbers of days with the military, the Department of Defense, jumping out of buildings and scaling them and doing all of these researches.
Yes, and we can probably include some of the videos and you can show them. I spent like the last 2 weeks. So I spent the first week in Washington. I got to go to the White House. I got to get a tour of Langley, which is where the CIA is, which is featured in our film, and kind of get to go to the Spy Museum, which is incredible if you haven't been, and talks all about spycraft. So I got to do all of that. And then a friend of mine who's a great writer had told me about this program you can sign up where they take 30 people. You have to be an American citizen with the Department of Defense. And you kind of show up to the Pentagon and you go, okay, for 5 days, I'll go wherever. You just arrive with a bag. You have no idea where you're going. You just know that you arrive in the Pentagon. They tell you like, okay, 5 days later, you're going to get dropped in Miami. And you have to spend a day with each department. So you spend a day with the Marines, a day with the Army, a day with the Navy, the Air Force, and the Coast Guards. And you talk to them, you do drills. I hope you can clip it into the video, but there's a drill I did with the Army where I have to jump out of this building with a kind of rope attached to me, which was very terrifying because there's a few seconds of free fall. And the next day at the Marines, we had to do, I think it was like 150 foot, and you didn't even have a harness on. You had like a rope harness and you have to scale down. I was like the first person to go because I actually just was like, okay, I got to get this over with. And then at the Air Force, we went on helicopters. We got to go on the nuclear submarines. We got to go out with the Coast Guard on boats. It was like amazing. And most amazing, we got to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner with the people that joined the military and ask them questions. So it was pretty incredible research for me for a couple of my projects that I have because I feel sometimes there's like one view of one type of person that joins the military, but in truth, there was like every single person that I had breakfast, lunch, and dinner were completely different stories, and a really incredible experience.
Absolutely, Sophia Banks, having breakfast, lunch, and dinner with some members of the military. In definitive, you are doing a very impressive amount of research. But this is not the first time that you are doing this because you did something similar for your feature film called Black Site.
Yeah, I did. Not to this extent. This was like going off the grid, 5 days. Like, I really want you to know, you show up at the Pentagon, you bring a suitcase on Monday morning, and you don't know where you're going. You don't know where you're sleeping. You get on a plane and you don't know where you're going. And all you know is that on Saturday morning, so Monday, on Saturday morning, you're going to be in you can book a flight out of Miami. That's it. So that's all you know. We got to fly out of the Air Force where the President of the United States flies out, Air Force One. But yeah, so that was like, I feel like I now call it method directing, where I've decided at this point, I'm becoming a method director because I'm having to embody all my own stunts. But so the last movie, okay, so being Australian, I had never shot a gun. I really didn't know, and so I thought, you know what, I'm directing an action movie. I better like know exactly what it feels like and have a bit of understanding. So I went to this place in Orlando called WOFT, WOFT, and they do like a 3-day training course, right? And it's quite good because they have a self-defense, you know, like what would you do if someone followed you, and kind of like awareness things of like, okay, if you get it, I mean, the main kind of message is if you're somewhere and get a bad feeling, leave. You know what I mean? Like, don't hang around. If you get a bad feeling, you're walking to your car, don't keep walking, turn around. So we did that, but we did get to shoot guns. We tried machine guns. We did like active shooter training. We did a bunch of training, and it gave me, I yanked on my camera. So I'm just going to say that again, accidentally. So we got to do, so we went to this place called WOFT, and we got to do some active shooter training, machine gun training, and it gave me, I most importantly, as a filmmaker, you want to talk to the people. So I got to talk to people. I got to talk to people that serve the country. Most of them were ex-military, but it was good. I felt like, okay, I got to, you know, connect with the people with the stories I was trying to tell.
Absolutely, Sophia Banks, always connecting to the people to better understand their experiences. And I think that you just invented what I can now call the Banks directing method.
That's right. I now have my own method, which is a little bit crazy, but I will say it was a great rush, and I think I'm going to go skydiving next weekend. So now I'm a little addicted.
You are a little bit addicted
to the adrenaline. Yeah.
Learning and having this adrenaline. And I would love to discuss about Black Site, because in this movie, I feel that you are redefining the word emergency.
Yes, and it's a great little action movie. It's $10 million. I'm happy because, to be honest, my director's cut did not come out in the beginning, but now it is out, so everyone can actually watch it. And yeah, it's just a non-stop action movie. We shot it during COVID. We had only a couple of locations, super gritty action, and I feel that for the budget we had and the time we had and being in the middle of COVID, we did a great job.
Absolutely, Sophia Banks. And there is one item that piqued my attention in this feature film. This is a cake with 10 candles on it and with the shape of a building.
You know what's so funny is, well, it's not funny. I shouldn't say that. But that building was like the shape of one of the American buildings. And so then we were like, it was just supposed to be like like the guys couldn't really make a cake. So we kind of messed it up because they're not supposed to be good cooks. So that was supposed to be pretty funny.
In this feature film called Black Site, Sophia Banks, there is a lot of action. But when it comes to this dilemma of whether standing or walking on escalators, the CIA agents didn't have a lot of time to think. They were running on the escalators.
Yes, I think because they thought it was an emergency. And they were actually the Delta Force, which is like the force, it's like a special operations force that the Americans, you know, will drop in when they're doing missions overseas. So, but yeah, they were trying to get in there.
Additionally, Sophia Banks, I would love to discuss about your journey that started with this passion and this desire to be a film director since a very young age, and for example, by watching the feature film The Wizard of Oz numerous times.
I know. I watched that film. So I watched The Wizard of Oz every single day, morning and night for I don't even know how long. And you know, when Dorothy opens the door to the wonderful world of Oz, it's just a magical kind of moment. And if you've never seen it on a big screen, you should. But it's just kind of magical. So yes, I think I directed my first film. I wrote, directed, and starred in. Was not that great. At 11, I made my younger brother the camera operator. I got my school friends in it. And then I became a big lover of Spielberg. You know, I grew up with the E.T., Close Encounters, also like the Goonies, you know, Zemeckis films, the Goonies, things like that. So I loved all those films and just kind of grew up with that. And I wanted to go on and direct film, but where I grew up in Australia, it seemed like a dream career, but not something that was possible. So I also went and studied business, and then I studied fashion, and I got sort of into fashion and designing clothes and doing costume design. And then I used that to transfer over to directing fashion commercials and now car commercials and other commercials. And I love directing commercials and have even come to Montreal to do them and sort of travel the world. And in between doing movies, I will get to go places and shoot wonderful commercials, and have worked with, you know, BMW and Range Rover and Kendall and Kylie Kardashian and Target and Barbie, Airbnb, all sorts of top brands. So it's super fun. And I mean, I actually got to be in Barbie's dream closet in Airbnb and shoot that. So super fun.
As you just mentioned, Sophia Banks, you did a little stop at the costume design department at the beginning of your journey. Can you tell us a little bit more about this decision and this particular choice?
Yes. So the decision was I liked fashion. It felt more attainable because I didn't really know many female directors. And it felt like a long shot to do that. So it felt like an easier step. And I loved, you know, I watched movies in costume forever. So I costume designed a movie called Syrup. And then I actually dressed a bunch of different celebrities for the Oscar red carpet and a bunch of different events. I think even in like 2009, I got the most Googled dress of the Oscars on Priyanka Chopra. So I even had picked that dress, you know? And then I used my fashion contacts and I contacted actually Christian Siriano, who's an incredible designer. And I sort of had this idea for girls skateboarding and couture. And I just showed him this idea and was like, you know what, we should make a commercial. And then we made it and it sort of blew up and went viral.
In conclusion, you were making it on time.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Sophia Banks.
Thank you so much.